Hello, and welcome to Jeff Kagan Interviews. I'm Jeff Kagan. Jeff Kagan Interviews is a podcast where I interview executives of interesting and important companies in our ever-changing industry. Today we have with us Jennifer Sanders, and we're going to be talking about smart cities. Jennifer is co-founder and executive director of the North Texas Innovation Alliance, or NTXIA. Welcome, Jennifer.
No, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. I have several questions that I put together, and feel free to take this conversation in any other direction that you think is important or interesting or something that I'm not covering. To start with, give us an overview of the North Texas Innovation Alliance and its core mission.
No, absolutely. So the North Texas Innovation Alliance is made up of almost 50 different stakeholders, which include municipalities, transit agencies, private sector, academia, everybody that should be at the table is the way I like to think about it. And so our mission is to create the most connected, smart, and resilient region in the country that we can. So we tackle problems all across the board every year and find a number of ways to support our members in reaching their goals.
Okay. This is a very hot new area, and it's going to be continuing to grow for many years to come. You described the NTXIA as being able to break down the silos that the different members have and drive collaboration and innovation. Sounds wonderful, but how do you do that?
Tale as old as time, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, no, I think we think about breaking silos, at three levels. One is cross-department within an organization. Two is cross-jurisdictionally from a geographic perspective, obviously, and then cross-sector. And so really the first step from my perspective is one, to get the organizations in the room that have a stake in the outcomes here that we're all looking to achieve, and then bringing in extra roles within those organizations. So my favorite thing is when you enter a room or I have a specific topic and those attending at first kind of look at me quizzically, like, I don't know why I'm in this meeting. I don't know how this relates to me. And then at the end of the meeting, there's a light bulb and they say, okay, I understand now. I want to meet with these others and these other specialties because we're all going to be able to solve our problems together through a single solution. Smart cities to me is really about how do you find one solution that can hit multiple KPIs, have multiple outcomes through that one ideally integrated and interoperable investment.
So do you work with other smart cities, or do you stay within the Dallas area?
We really, and I'm blessed to have been in this space for almost a decade, which for the age of this space is actually a pretty long tenure. And so we have relationships, across the US and really around the globe. And one of the things I love most about this space is that everyone is so willing to share lessons learned and do some of that, everyone to move faster than we did, that's coming after. So we do, frequently talk to cities around the country. Peachtree Corners in Georgia is a core partner of ours. We also founded a National Smart Coalitions Partnership, which is another long name, but really it is a coalition of coalitions that look like NTXIA in Colorado and Arizona and Illinois and Kansas, and we're all trying to get there together.
So in your experience over the years that you've been doing this, what are the differences between Europe and the USA with smart cities? In other words, what makes the US so unique compared to Europe?
Well, I think, in Europe, it has always been lauded as being far ahead of the US, right, in terms of their deployment. And I think there's two reasons for that I often think about. One is the age of the cities has necessitated movement toward new solutions much sooner, than we have from an infrastructure standpoint, from a density, from a lot of these challenges and priorities that we all have. So one is the urgency hit sooner than it was recognized here to look at that. And the second, we talk a lot about financial models and sustainability of these investments. And I think outside of the US, the model is a little bit flipped from the standpoint of the public sector tends to be much heavier early investor with private sector follow-on. And here it feels more balanced, or it's private sector driving more so based on funding models. So those are two reasons I feel like they have classically moved quickly.
So are there models from Europe that U.S. cities can learn from?
I think the short answer is yes, but I think one thing that, and I should find the article, and be able to recount it more coherently. But there was talk about, and I think this is when New York, the demand pricing for that was approved, and then has since hit pause. And one of the factors that was discussed is, Europe, several cities over in Europe have implemented demand pricing successfully. Now it has decreased congestion. And I think that the willingness to wait out the cranky period, when you're making a change like that before the behavioral and the economic benefit and the benefit to my commute or others really takes hold. I think the willingness to wait through the mess it has been successfully done in Europe and in Asia, that I think we still struggle with that messy middle.
This is such a new area that I imagine you learn a lot from each other, whether it's here in the United States or over in Europe. And there's an upcoming Smart Cities World Congress in Barcelona, and that should be impressive, because every year that goes by there's new technology. So tell us what role the NTXIA will play at that event.
It grows every year, which is so exciting to me. And so this year we're activating a large space in the U.S. Pavilion. We have multiple cities that are all coming together to represent. So the North Texas area has a substantial delegation within the pavilion this year. Building on last year, where we had 30 representatives from North Texas across several municipalities and agencies, participated on a lot of speaking panels. We're able to learn a great deal. And so this year, we're obviously looking to do the same, sharing again with Peachtree Corners Curiosity Lab. And we're taking up a whole block of the pavilion with a lot of really exciting ways to demonstrate what's happening here, while really taking the time and intentionality to go and speak with as many cities, countries, and companies that we possibly can to stay apace. Because it changes every day. I say I'm getting my doctorate on the ground because I'm constantly learning. It's a lot cheaper too.
It's funny. It's every couple of years that go by, the technologies are constantly evolving and changing. And I've talked with Peachtree Corners, a Curiosity Lab, and I've visited with them and seen their operations, and it's really inspiring. It's what tomorrow will look like. It's like watching the Jetsons when you were a little kid, seeing what tomorrow will look like. So public and private, you got firms and governments, and the public sector typically moves a lot faster than the government does. So what strategies, because these are all different groups that have to work together. So what strategies do you employ to align the interests between these two groups?
No, so the intentionality of the structure of NTXIA and the Dallas Innovation Alliance, prior to founding the regional scope, was really that it should be an independent organization, because that offers flexibility, one, in bringing ideas to the table, two, in rapid testing of technologies, and really taking a look at that. And my goal is always to kind of be a fractional convener and elevate the understanding to be able to deliver on a silver platter all of the evidence necessary to make decisions above my pay grade. So that's really what we're hoping to do, is use tools that are available in some cases to the private sector in terms of how they do implement, and in a lot of cases for the public sector who doesn't have the internal capacity to do everything that they want to do. So we really try and be as significant a tool in the tool belt as we can.
Okay. You've been in the business for a while, so you've had a chance to see new technologies and share with us some of the upcoming projects that you're excited about. This
has been a really busy year already. So for us, we have four four core programs that we're executing throughout the year. One is this Urban Resilience Fellows program, which to the point of silo breaking is really looking at how do we solve core problems cross-departmentally, cross-disciplinary within a university, a number of universities, to look at these problems that require that number of perspectives. And we finished our first cohort, a lot of really amazing learnings. We're recruiting for our second cohort in the fall right now. And so that's one that has been a twinkle in the eye for a few years. So we're really excited with the partnerships with universities across the region to be able to, again, support how do we get people to know what they don't know and have some extra capacity from very, very smart people to move us forward in those areas. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny that this business is full of very smart people wandering around trying to pave the roads for the future and trying to see what tomorrow will look like and the technologies that we're going to use. And as new technologies, I mean, do you use wireless, private wireless? Which kinds of technologies do you use in the smart cities?
I think based on the use, you need all of them. So in some cases, I think it's private LTE, private 5G. In a lot of cases, from an accessibility standpoint, we talk a lot about broadband access, the different ways that can be deployed to facilities, to residents, to businesses can be varied. And a lot of that is one, looking at the existing infrastructure and what gaps are most critical to fill and how efficiently, financially, and otherwise can those be filled. So it really does depend on the need and use case, but we see a combination of every type of network that I'm currently aware of, but I'm sure I'll learn about 5 more this afternoon.
Yeah, it always happens. But by the time the Barcelona comes around, the smart, you're going to be deluged with all sorts of new ideas.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Mm-hmm. It's very true, and I think the complementary to the network conversation, we have the Internet for North Texas Coalition, we relaunched. It was a coalition under the former name Operation Connectivity, but that was really meant to solve the immediate challenges when COVID hit around remote work, remote learning. And so, 15 school districts and cities coming together and saying, how are we spending this money? What's the most effective way? How are you, even supply chain, conversations in terms of who has the Chromebooks, how are you guys accessing these in short order? And so in relaunching that across the Nexus region, it's really about what are the core issues now? We've, for the most part, gotten through that phase of time. And so now what are the highest needs for cities as small as 3,000 all the way up to the regional, which is about 8 million. And so that's extremely gratifying too, because that is perhaps one of the top 3 problems of our generation to solve, is that access and spread of high-speed networks.
So you mentioned COVID. How did COVID impact what you're doing? Did it accelerate it? Did you use this technology? Did it slow it down because people weren't at work? What happened during COVID?
I think the foundational component accelerated, and a couple of reasons for that were the immediate needs, whether that's how do you communicate with constituents, how do you accelerate R&D to solve some of these problems that were identified based on what needed to happen during COVID. I think some of those, again, networks were a very big piece. How are we getting different industries comfortable with remote work, video conferencing, all of those pieces, and what we found. The NTXIA launched in March 2020. And so the first meeting that we had after we formally launched was the day that the shelter-in-place order went into effect in Dallas County. And I just thought, should I cancel it? Is anyone going to join? My God, scramble. But we decided to keep it, whoever joins, we think it's important. And we had 25 different jurisdictions and members join. And it was an opportunity for them to all say to each other, how are you doing this? How are you figuring out the barriers? Like, who is doing this? What service? How are you continuing X service now, and for the next however long this lasts? And so I sat back and I went, this is exactly why this coalition is so important. And so it was a really, so I do think COVID accelerated the collaboration, not because people haven't wanted to do it, but because you had the capacity and the urgency to have either the internal capacity to go out and spend this time and the financial, that came from relief funds and otherwise. So,
that was a time that we wish never happened, and we're glad that it's over. But, it was probably an important part of your evolution, because it wasn't just discussing what or building what was coming in the future, but it's like, how do we use it now? Because we have a need to use it now.
Right.
And, so finally, let me ask you, for cities who are looking to do what you're doing, are looking to become smarter and connected, what advice would you offer them to help them get started taking those first steps toward becoming a smart city?
Mm-hmm. I think that the most critical is maybe the simplest but not easiest, which is to identify the problem first that you're trying to solve and to get very, very specific on what that means. So we talk about going from boiling the ocean to boiling the Great Lakes to boiling the Trinity River to try and get that manageable first win, or really having an understanding of what you're trying to do and why, and then getting the people in the room necessary to do that. And a lot of the role of the private sector is to come in. They do move faster. They do have more expertise. And so saying, who are the smartest people to bring into a room to be able to understand what's happening, answer questions we don't know. The first one was 5G in 2020. They're like, we have people coming in for meetings and I don't even know the questions to ask, right? And so that we're starting to call step 0 in terms of before you even consider a solution, before you even look at, you have to know, one, what's your baseline? Have you upgraded your ERP system to the point where you could do any of these things?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of capacity? So the first piece is, is having enough champions, to get in the room and to collate that momentum. And then really to get very, very specific on what is the North Star, but what are we doing first and why? So it sounds simple, but is not easy,
Especially since it's such a fast moving target, 5G, 6G and everything that goes beyond that, using all these technologies, private wireless, whatever's coming next. Maybe something else that's coming next that you have to figure out how to weave it together. And sounds like you're doing a great job. I think this is just so interesting. So let me thank you, Jen. This was a very enjoyable interview for me, and I'd like to thank the viewer as well for joining us today. I think this is going to remain. The Smart Cities is going to remain one of our brightest stars, and you're going to have a great opportunity over the course of the next 5 and 10 years to ride this charging bull.
I love putting the pieces together every day, and so I just really appreciate the opportunity.
Exactly. So if any of you viewers would like to talk about becoming a guest on the Jeff Kagan interviews, I invite you to give me a call or send me an email or a text message or whatever. You know how to get a hold of me, and we can talk about it. Thank you. And let me just say thank you to everyone and goodbye.
Take care.